Hey, I'm Charles Hoffman from blackhostaudio, and I've partnered up with SonicScoop to show you how to process pop vocals using Soundtoys plugins. By the end of this tutorial, you'll have a reliable template that you can use as a starting point to process vocals in the future. Soundtoys has been kind enough to sponsor this video, but I've been using their plugins for over 6 years now. Whenever I'm looking for some of the flavor and unique characteristics that come along with using analog gear, Soundtoys plugins are almost always my first choice, especially when it comes to creative effects. Here's what the final product will sound like with Soundtoys plugins applied.
I heard you out with your friends, talking about how you got me for life. Don't gotta put no effort in, cause you know that I'm a ride or die. The thing that you've been missing, I'm not one to stick around when I begin to question what it is that you're all about. Being shady, acting crazy, never call me back. Then you turn around and pay me every shade of black. Dropping my games on me, baby, like a sneak attack. Being shady, acting crazy, never call me back. Then you turn around and pay me every shade of black. Dropping my games on me, baby, like a sneak attack. Like a sneak attack.
Let's take a listen to the raw vocal recording and then establish some mixing goals.
I heard you out with your friends, talking about how you got me for life. Don't gotta put no effort in, cause you know that I'm a ride or die. The thing that you've been missing, I'm not one to stick around when I begin to question what it is that you're all about. Being shady, acting crazy, never call me back. Then you turn around and pay me every shade of black. Dropping my games on me, baby, like a sneak attack. Being shady, acting crazy, never call me back. Then you turn around and pay me every shade of black. Dropping my games on me, baby, like a sneak attack. Like a sneak attack.
As you can hear, I've already cleaned up my vocal. I'm also applying some light pitch correction to tighten up the performance before I start applying other forms of processing. Before I start adding plugins to my project, what's my goal here? What am I trying to achieve with the processing I apply? From listening to the performance, I know that I want to do a couple different things. I know that I want to control dynamic range, add some flavor, sculpt the tone, create a sense of space, and I also want to generate a synthetic harmony. If you're processing raw vocals, it's pretty likely that your to-do list will look something like this as well. First, I need to control the dynamic range. The vocal jumps up and down in level, causing it to stand out from the instrumental at various points in time. To fix this issue, I can use a compressor. I also want to sweeten up the vocal a little bit. This performance was recorded using a TLM 103 microphone. It's a clean and articulate mic that does a great job of capturing details, but it doesn't provide the natural compression and flavor that you might get out of something like a tube mic. Next up, I want to shape the tone of the vocal. The compression and saturation is going to alter the tone, hopefully in a good way, but I'll likely need to tighten things up with an EQ. Let's start with that. We can come back to this checklist in a moment. I'm going to load Soundtoys Effect Rack onto my vocal track. Effect Rack lets you insert Soundtoys plugins into a virtual rack, while allowing you to affect the rack's input level, output level, and mix, which is the blend between the dry input signal and wet process signal. There's also a recycle knob that you can use to route a portion of the output signal back into the input to create echoes and increase saturation. Alright, so let's load up Devil Lock into the rack. This is a super aggressive compressor that Soundtoys recommends using on drums, but we're going to use it to control the level of these vocals. I'll start by setting a fast release time. I want the compression I apply to tame the level of transients, but then back off the signal when it gets quiet. I can drive my vocal into the compressor by turning up the crush knob.
I heard you out with your friends, talking about how you got me for life. Don't gotta put no effort in, cause you know that I'm a ride or die. The thing that you've been missing, I'm not one to stick around when I begin to question what it is that you're all about. Being shady, acting crazy, never call me back. Then you turn around and pay me every shade of black. Dropping my games on me, baby, like a sneak attack. Being shady, acting crazy, never call me back. Then you turn around and pay me every shade of black. Dropping my games on me, baby, like a sneak attack. Like a sneak attack.
There's a crunch knob that I could use to add some edge to a rock or metal vocal.
I heard you out with your friends, talking about how you got me for life. Don't gotta put no effort in, cause you know that I'm a ride or die. The thing that you've been missing, I'm not one to stick around when I begin to question.
And a darkness knob that you could use to shape the tone of lo-fi vocal samples.
I out with your friends, talking about how you got me for life. Don't gotta put no effort in, 'cause you know that I'm a ride or die. The thing that you've been missing, I'm not one to stick around when I begin to question what it is that you're all about.
I'm going to keep the mix control set to 100% because I don't want any harsh transients slipping through the compressor. Now I want to add a little more flavor to my vocal, and I can do that using Decapitator. This plugin provides 5 different analog saturation models to choose from. Decapitator is one of my go-to saturators when I want to thicken up bass tracks, but in moderation, it's a great vocal saturator as well. This drive knob increases the amount of saturation applied.
I heard you out with your friends, talking about how you got me for life. Don't gotta put no effort in, 'cause you know that I'm a ride or die. The thing that you've been missing, I'm not one to stick around when I begin to question what it is that you're all about. Being shady, acting crazy, never call me back. Then you turn around and paint me every shade of black. Dropping my games on me, baby, like a sneak attack. Being shady, acting crazy, never call me back. Then you turn around and paint me every shade of black. Dropping my games on me, baby, like a sneak attack. Like a sneak attack.
I think I like this saturation model the most for these vocals, so I'll stick with it. The punish button is one of Decapitator's claims to fame. It applies extra gain to the signal and shreds apart your sound.
I heard you out with your friends, talking about how you got me for life. Don't gotta put no effort in, 'cause you know that I'm a ride or die.
This effect is definitely not appropriate for these vocals, but it's a really cool feature that has plenty of uses. You can punish kick drums, basses, and gritty lead synths. There's a low cut knob that you can use to remove low frequency content like rumble and plosives. I don't really need to worry about that since I'm processing female vocals that were recorded using a shock mount and pop filter. The thumb switch will add a low frequency boost at the low cut frequency. This can really fatten up your low end. Sometimes it can come to the rescue if you're processing airy vocals that need a little more body.
I heard you out with your friends, talking about how you got me for life. Don't gotta put no effort in, 'cause you know that I'm a ride or die. The thing that you've been missing, I'm not one to stick around when I begin to question what it is that you're all about.
This tone knob is a gentle sloping equalizer that's similar to a tilt EQ. You can use it to brighten up your vocals.
I heard you out with your friends, talking about how you got me for life. Don't gotta put no effort in, 'cause you know that I'm a ride or die. The thing that you've been missing, I'm not one to stick around when I begin to question what it is that you're all about.
When I process pop vocals, I love to boost the top end like this. I think it gives the vocals a really nice shimmer and sheen. You get this instant glossy sound with almost no work. If things start to sound a little harsh, you can try rolling off a bit of your top end with the high cut knob. Just don't overdo it or you can end up with a muffled sound.
I heard you out with your friends, talking about how you got me for life. Don't gotta put no effort in, 'cause you know that I'm a ride or die.
This steep switch alters the slope of the high cut filter, 6 decibels per octave in the off position, and 30 decibels per octave in the on position. To keep your vocals sounding natural, you'll probably want to keep this switch in the off position.
I heard you out with your friends, talking about how you got me for life. Don't gotta put no effort in, 'cause you know that I'm a ride or die. The thing that you've been missing.
The output switch links the output knob and drive knob in an inverse manner. As you turn up the drive, the output is reduced. This helps you make level-matched processing comparisons. Finally, you've got a mix knob to control the blend between the dry signal and wet signal. I'm going to bring some more of my dry signal in so that the saturation isn't quite so overwhelming.
I heard you out with your friends, talking about how you got me for life. Don't gotta put no effort in, 'cause you know that I'm a ride or die. The thing that you've been missing, I'm not one to stick around when I begin to question what it is that you're all about.
I want to sculpt the tone some more, so I'm going to add CQ into my effect chain. This plugin's modeled after an EQ by a company called Siemens, or in German, Siemens. The correct pronunciation of this plugin's name is either CQ if you're an English speaker, or ZQ if you're a German speaker. This EQ has smooth curves and an airy top end. I'm usually pretty concise and intentional with the processing I apply, but not when using an EQ like this. You can get some great unexpected tones by simply playing around with the knobs.
I heard you out with your friends, talking about how you got me for life. Don't gotta put no effort in, cause you know that I'm a ride or die, the thing that you've been missing. I'm not one to stick around when I begin to question what it is that you're all about. Being shady, acting crazy, never call me back. Then you turn around and paint me every shade of black. Dropping my games on me, baby, like a sneak attack. Being shady, acting crazy, never call me back. Then you turn around and paint me every shade of black. Dropping my games on me, baby, like a sneak attack. Like a sneak attack.
CQ has a drive knob that lets you cut or boost the gain before the EQ's output amplifier, allowing you to control the amount of saturation produced by the EQ's active circuit. I'm already applying saturation using Decapitator, so this might be overkill, but let's see how it sounds.
I heard you were out with your friends, talking about how you got me for life. Don't gotta put no effort in, cause you know that I'm a ride or die, the thing that you've been missing. I'm not one to stick around when I begin to question what it is that you're all about. Being shady, acting crazy, never call me back. Then you turn around and paint me every shade of black. Dropping my games on me, baby, like a sneak attack. Being shady, acting crazy, never call me back. Then you turn around and paint me every shade of black. Dropping my games on me, baby, like a sneak attack. Like a sneak attack.
So that's it for the processing that I'm going to apply directly to my lead vocal track. We're going to create some harmonies and add a few spatial effects using Soundtoys plugins in a moment, but let's take a listen to the progress we've made so far.
I heard you were out with your friends, talking about how you got me for life. Don't gotta put no effort in, cause you know that I'm a ride or die, the thing that you've been missing. I'm not one to stick around when I begin to question what it is that you're all about. Being shady, acting crazy, never call me back. Then you turn around and paint me every shade of black. Dropping my games on me, baby, like a sneak attack. Being shady, acting crazy, never call me back. Then you turn around and paint me every shade of black. Dropping my games on me, baby, like a sneak attack. Like a sneak attack.
I've got a cool trick that you can use to create harmonies if you only have one lead vocal to work with. I'm going to start by sending my lead vocal to an aux track. To do this in Pro Tools, you need to send the vocal track to a bus and then assign the bus to the input of an aux track.
I heard you were out with your friends, talking about how you got me for life.
Now there's a duplicate version of my lead vocal running through the aux track, and I can control the level of signal running to that track with this send fader. I'm going to drop an instance of Soundtoys Little Altar Boy onto this aux track. This plugin lets you affect the pitch of your vocals and apply format shifting, which you can use to create cool gender bending effects. I want to create a robotic, high-pitched harmony above these vocals. I'll start by increasing the pitch to 7. This is going to create the interval of a perfect fifth, which should layer well with the lead vocal.
I heard you were out with your friends, talking about how you got me for life. Don't gotta put no effort in, cause you know that I'm a ride or die.
I'm also going to turn up the format knob a little bit until I get a hyper-pop vocal sound.
I heard you were out with your friends, talking about how you got me for life. Don't gotta put no effort in, cause you know that I'm a ride or die, the thing that you've been missing. I'm not one to stick around when I begin to question.
At the moment, this harmony is layered right beneath the lead, but I want to spread it out to the sides to help fill space. You can use Soundtoys Microshift to do this. Microshift introduces pitch and time variation to the left and right channels of your audio, resulting in widespread vocals. I'll start with the mix knob set to 100% wet since I don't want any of this signal to appear centered. Now I'm going to play around with these style options until I find one that I like. Each style is based on a different hardware effect preset.
I heard you were out with your friends, talking about how you got me for life. Don't gotta put no effort in, cause you know that I'm a ride or die, the thing that you've been missing. I'm not one to stick around when I begin to question what it is that you're all about.
You can adjust the amount of detuning and delay applied to the channels, both of which are continually time varying.
I heard you were out with your friends, talking about how you got me for life. Don't gotta put no effort in, cause you know that I'm a ride or die, the thing that you've been missing. I'm not one to stick around when I begin to question what it is that you're all about. Being shady, acting crazy, never call me back. Then you turn around and paint me every shade of black. Dropping my games on me, baby, like a sneak attack. Being shady, acting crazy, never call me back. Then you turn around and paint me every shade of black. Dropping my games on me, baby, like a sneak attack. Like a sneak attack.
Last but not least, there's this focus knob that controls the crossover point of a 2-band crossover filter. Only the high band is affected by the processing you apply, which can help keep your low end tight and defined.
I heard you were out with your friends, talking about how you got me for life. Don't gotta put no effort in, cause you know that I'm a ride or die. The thing that you've been missing, I'm not one to stick around when I begin to question what it is that you're all about. Being shady, acting crazy, never call me back. Then you turn around and pay me every shade of black. Dropping my gears on me, baby, like a sneak attack. Being shady, acting crazy, never call me back. Then you turn around and pay me every shade of black. Dropping my gears on me, baby, like a sneak attack. Like a sneak attack.
Let's say I only want my harmony to play at certain points in time. The benefit of using an aux track to apply this processing is that I can automate the send level over time.
Being shady, acting crazy, never call me back. Then you turn around and pay me every shade of black. Dropping my gears on me, baby, like a sneak attack. Being shady, acting crazy, never call me back. Then you turn around and pay me every shade of black. Dropping my gears on me, baby, like a sneak attack. Like a sneak attack.
You can use this same process to create vocal doubles or low harmonies as well. All you need to do is create a few more aux tracks.
Being shady, acting crazy, never call me back. Then you turn around and pay me every shade of black. Dropping my gears on me, baby, like a sneak attack. Being shady, acting crazy, never call me back. Then you turn around and pay me every shade of black. Dropping my gears on me, baby, like a sneak attack. Like a sneak attack.
You can't have pop vocals without reverb and delay, so let's set that up. I've created an aux track for a reverb and a separate aux track for a delay. I'm going to insert Soundtoys little plate on my reverb aux, and it should come as no surprise that it's a plate reverb. This plugin is inspired by an EMT 140 plate reverb, which is a huge contraption from the 1960s. Essentially, you'd run your sound through a suspended metal plate that was part of this assembly, and then record the vibrations to tape. You'd end up with a very metallic sounding reverb effect, which happens to suit pop vocals quite nicely. Little plate has a decay knob that affects the length of the reverb's tail.
Being shady, acting crazy, never call me back. Then you turn around and pay me every shade of black. Dropping my gears on me, baby, like a sneak attack. Being shady, acting crazy, never call me back. Then you turn around and pay me every shade of black. Dropping my gears on me, baby, like a sneak attack. Like a sneak attack.
There's also a low cut filter that you can use to remove low frequency content. I suggest cutting away your low end anywhere from 250 to 500 Hz. That's going to prevent it from masking your vocals. Just turn up the knob until you can hear that some of the low end has disappeared, but try to avoid a thin and brittle sound.
Being shady, acting crazy, never call me back. Then you turn around and pay me every shade of black. Dropping my gears on me, baby, like a sneak attack. Being shady, acting crazy, never call me back. Then you turn around and pay me every shade of black. Dropping my gears on me, baby, like a sneak attack. Like a sneak attack. Being shady, acting crazy, never call me back. Then you turn around and pay me every shade of black. Dropping my gears on me, baby, like a sneak attack. Being shady, acting crazy, never call me back. Then you turn around and pay me every shade of black. Dropping my gears on me, baby, like a sneak attack. Like a sneak attack.
Since we've applied this reverb to an aux track, you don't want to hear any of the dry signal, so keep the mix knob at 100% wet. If you want the reverb to be more or less present, just adjust the sound level. Moving on, let's take a look at my favorite delay plugin of all time, which is Echo Boy. It provides a whole bunch of classic Echo Box tones. Back in the day, you didn't have delay plugins, you had Echo Boxes. Echo Boy is unique because it's not just a standard delay plugin. It has so many presets that do different things, ranging from choruses and modulation to unique sound design effects. You can even use it to apply reverb to your tracks.
Being shady, acting crazy, never call me back. Then you turn around and pay me every shade of black. Dropping my gears on me, baby, like a sneak attack. Being shady, acting crazy, never call me back. Then you turn around and pay me every shade of black. Dropping my gears on me, baby, like a sneak attack. Like a sneak attack. Being shady, acting crazy, never call me back. Then you turn around and pay me every shade of black. Dropping my gears on me, baby, like a sneak attack. Being shady, acting crazy, never call me back. Then you turn around and pay me every shade of black. Dropping my gears on me, baby, like a sneak attack. Like a sneak attack.
I could take this delay plugin in a million different directions, but I want to throw signal to this delay at the end of a few phrases. That's going to create the effect you hear in pop songs, where the last word of a phrase is repeated to help fill space. I'm going to revert to the default patch to do this, and then automate the send level of my vocal so that only the section I've targeted will have a delay applied to it.
Being Being shady, acting crazy, never call me back. Then you turn around and paint me every shade of black. Drop the mic, you do me, baby, like a sneak attack.
We can clean this up and make it sound more polished. I'm going to turn the mix knob up to 100% so you only hear the delayed signal.
Drop the mic, you do me, baby, like a sneak attack.
I also want to cut some of the low frequency content and high frequency content to give the delayed signal its own sense of space.
Drop the mic, you do me, baby, like a sneak attack.
Feel free to experiment with different delay modes when you do this.
Drop the mic, you do me, baby, like a sneak attack. Drop the mic, you do me, baby, like a sneak attack. Drop the mic, you do me, baby, like a sneak attack. Drop the mic, you do me, baby, like a sneak attack.
Do I need to add saturation here? Well, I did cut some frequency content, so the vocal has lost a bit of its body. A little saturation can thicken things up and help the vocal avoid sounding weak.
Drop the mic, you do me, baby, like a sneak attack.
The saturation that gets applied is dependent upon the style you've selected. Each style applies a different echo sound modeled based on different hardware units. Clicking the Style Edit button will bring up a bunch of additional sound shaping controls. I'm usually happy with one of the presets, but if you want to get in there and really fine-tune things, then you have the option to do so.
Drop the mic, you do me, baby, like a sneak attack. Drop the mic, you do me, baby, like a sneak attack.
Let's take a listen to these vocals with no processing and then with processing.
I heard you were out with your friends, talking about how you got me for life. Don't gotta put no effort in, cause you know that I'm a ride or die. The thing that you've been missing, I'm not one to stick around when I begin to question what it is that you're all about. Being shady, acting crazy, never call me back. Then you turn around and paint me every shade of black. Drop the mic, you do me, baby, like a sneak attack. Being shady, acting crazy, never call me back. Then you turn around and paint me every shade of black. Drop the mic, you do me, baby, like a sneak attack. Like a sneak attack. I heard you were out with your friends, talking about how you got me for life. Don't gotta put no effort in, cause you know that I'm a ride or die. The thing that you've been missing, I'm not one to stick around when I begin to question what it is that you're all about. Being shady, acting crazy, never call me back. Then you turn around and paint me every shade of black. Drop the mic, you do me, baby, like a sneak attack. Being shady, acting crazy, never call me back. Then you turn around and paint me every shade of black. Drop the mic, you do me, baby, like a sneak attack. Like a sneak attack.
As you can hear, there's a huge difference, and the vocals now sound like pop vocals. We tightened and brightened up the lead vocal with some EQ, compression, and saturation. We created synthetic harmonies to thicken up the mix. There's some reverb that's adding a nice gloss to the vocals, and Echo Boy is helping fill space between phrases. If the songs you're writing don't sound like commercially released tracks, you might be overlooking an essential piece of the overall production process. I created a free checklist called 8 Steps to Producing Radio Quality Songs that you can download through the link below and use to boost the production quality of your music. Feel free to check it out if it sounds like it might be useful. Finally, a big thank you to Soundtoys for making this video possible, and to SonicScoop for having me on the channel. Give this video a like if it helped you out, and make sure to subscribe to SonicScoop for more production tutorials like this. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.